Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Irene. Today I'm sharing our workshop renovation process. I'll show you how we made it from the very beginning till the very end, how we store all of my crafting supplies. I hope this will be useful, and also I'll show just a little bit of how we make our videos. Hope this will be interesting for you. We've decided we wanted the workshop to have that industrial feel of the beginning of the last century, like the restoration hardware interiors have. I really like this aesthetic, which is both clean and vintage, and I think it works perfect for a workshop. The furniture can be very basic, like open storage racks, and the decor will create the right mood. Well, how do all normal people start a renovation? Removing all the items and the furniture from the room, of course, and after that starting the renovation. But bloggers are not quite normal people, and therefore we started with what was the most essential for us, making the filming wall, which would work as a backdrop for filming. Gary and me have long dreamed of a vintage industrial style space with brick walls, old furniture and industrial lighting. Alas, we had no possibility to make a real brick wall in a city apartment, so we had to do with an imitation. There is a huge number of options of how to make a faux bricking, like tiles made of real vintage bricks or plaster bricks or brick panels. In the end, we decided to use panels as we needed to make the backing as quickly as possible. Having rummaged through the web, we opted for PVC panels. I liked the color and the shape. The bricks looked quite natural and attaching them was very quick and easy. Given the complex shape of the wall, there is also a ledge there, it was a perfect choice. We covered almost the entire filming wall with panels, leaving only about 30 inches near the very ceiling. This part is not seen when filming, so we decided to save on it and cover this part with wallpaper. We attached the panels very quickly, and what is great about the panels is that you can cut them right with scissors and bend as you like. For a wall like we have with a ledge, and as is usual for an old house, not having a single right angle, this is what works the best. Very soon we finished the wall, but it ended up being so shiny, especially in the shooting light. Oh, I had to do something to make them look less artificial. First, I tried the advice from Pinterest. I covered the bricks with white putty, but I didn't like how it looked, so I did it the other way. I made the putty gray, about the same color as the seams of the bricks were, by adding black and a little brown acrylic paint to it. And then I applied the putty all over the seams of the wall. By the way, the wall is about a year and a half old now, and the putty is holding up perfectly on PVC. After that, to make the bricks look matte and more natural, I dry brushed them in several shades of terracotta. I picked the colors similar to real bricks shades, and I used them randomly all over the wall so that each brick had a unique color blend. At the very end, I dry brushed the bricks white, and this was a real game changer. The bricks now look much more natural and provide a great background for our videos. The filming wall was ready, and so it was possible to remodel the room in the normal sequence. So, first we dismantled and carried out all the furniture. This used to be my grandma's room, then it was empty for a long time and we used it to store a variety of things. Here I have all kinds of empty boxes that are extremely necessary for a DIYer. There was also a big bookcase. We spent a lot of time disassembling it. And a sideboard where I stored some crafting supplies. We decided to keep the bookcase, of course, but dispose all the rest of the old furniture. Neither me nor Gary liked it, and we had no space for it actually, so there was no point in saving those cabinets for makeovers.
So we disassembled and took everything out. Well, almost everything. There was a mirror in the sideboard, which I decided to keep the very last moment, and we made a beautiful garden mirror window out of it, which you may have seen on the channel already. We had a bit of destructive activity, as well as several trips to the waste container, and the room was ready for an upgrade. To be honest, initially we were not going to repaste the wallpaper on the wall opposite to the filming site. We had planned installing storage racks here and shelving them with crafting materials, so we thought nothing would be visible behind them anyway. We bought steel storage racks. With the amount of crafting supplies and tools that I have, this is the best and at the same time the most budget-friendly option, I think. We chose the highest racks that were available, so they cover almost the entire wall. We assembled one rack and decided that we wanted the wallpaper to be renewed behind the racks after all. So we tore the old one off, primed the wall and proceeded to pasting. The wallpaper we've chosen has a concrete pattern corresponding to the industrial style of the entire workshop. The whole space looks brighter with it and even seems a little larger. Another important thing for us, which we accomplished even before ending with the wallpaper, was hanging a blackout curtain. It blocks sunlight completely, so that at any time of day or night, the lighting in the workshop is even and uniform, which helps us make good videos. And now it's time for us to do the furniture. Here we started with arranging the filming side again, and the first thing I decided to do was organizing paints. I have a lot of paints and it was never enough space for storing them. At first I arranged them in file cabinets, but it turned out to be inconvenient to look for the right shade, and remembering how convenient it was to store all the paints in a shallow cabinet in our country house where we had filmed videos before, we decided to make an open rack so that all the paints were well visible and I could reach the jar I needed easily. We assembled the rack out of lumber. It has a very simple shape. I stained all the parts using a water-based stain in oak. This shade falls perfectly into the aesthetics of an industrial vintage workshop, I think. I assembled the rack and attached small planks to the fronts of the shelves so that the paints wouldn't fall out. Then it was my cameraman's turn to work a little. To make the rack look really like a restoration hardware piece, we bought metal L-shaped angle profiles in a hardware store, and Gary cut off the pieces of the size we needed using a grinder. We also decorated these pieces with convex top screws. This was purely to make the right look, no real functionality here. Gary attached the rack to the wall to be sure it wouldn't fall, and finally I filled it with paint jars. You'll laugh, but it ended up being a little small to fit all of my paints, but most of them are here. Next, I decided to make over old office file cabinets to store tools. These file cabinets came from my former office. They were really sturdy and I liked them, but the look was too office-like. I primed the surface using the leftover primer which I had after the kitchen renovation. I also primed the drawer handles and label frames. I had bought super cheap window handles, and these label frames where you can insert paper labels to know what is inside a drawer. Somehow I like when everything is labeled. I thought about what color I wanted the cabinets to be for quite some time. In the end, I opted for a rich red shade. I wanted the cabinets to look like metal wheeled ones. To add some vintage feel, I added brown using a blending technique. I applied the red paint onto a wet surface quickly, and then I added brown along the edges with another brush. And after that, before the paints start drying, I blended the brown into the red, making a smooth transition from darker edges to the brighter center. I sealed the finished cabinets and attached the wheels to be able to move them around the workshop easily. The cabinets were serving me well like this for about a year, but when I started making videos for the new restoration channel, I realized that the red cabinets looked out of place and too bright for the vintage aesthetics I wanted to create. So I repainted them neutral brown using homemade chalk paint. A drop of red is still visible on them. I made the paint layer a little rough, as I thought it would look very natural, like a real old thing. That's why repainting of furniture is so satisfying. If for some reason it didn't work for you, the interior has changed, or you're kind of tired of the look, you can always repaint it again or change the style and get a completely new piece of furniture. I repainted the handles and the frames browns and finally sealed the cabinets with wax. Now I'm 100% satisfied with how they look. Here I store the paints that didn't fit into the rack, and this is my little life hack. I use Dollar Tree spice organizers to store the paint jars. Also, there are glue and adhesive tape stocks. And the second file cabinet is much more interesting to look into, I think. I use the top drawer for storing props for filming restoration, which you might noticed in the first restoration video. In the second drawer, I also store hand tools, but these are rather functional already. Well, and in the bottom drawer, I keep nice palettes and bowls I use for filming. Well, the main piece in our workshop is the table where we film most of my projects. The base of the table is from an antique Singer sewing machine which I inherited from my grandmother, and the tabletop is made out of reclaimed wood. Gary made this for me using 3 wood pieces framed by narrow pieces and connected everything using biscuit joints. I brushed the finished tabletop thoroughly to reveal the wood texture and then stained it using the same stain in oak as for the paint rack. I think the table ended up gorgeous. The texturized wood makes great atmospheric backdrop for filming. To complete the filming side, we decided to make another hanging rack. I needed some space for storing small items for my work, like brushes, stacks, sponges, and so on. First, I put them into a file cabinet drawer, but this turned out inconvenient. Each time I had to rummage through a pile of brushes looking for the right one. I decided that a flat rack, the same style as the paint rack, but hanging on the wall, would be perfect for storing all the stuff. We made the rack from lumber and L-shaped metal angle profile. The assembly process was generally the same as that of the paint rack, only the size and the depth of the shelves were different. First, I settled all the brushes and pencils here. I have so many. Palette knives, stacks, tweezers, as well as materials I use for restoration work. Well, and after the filming side was ready, we finished the opposite one, which you usually don't see. First, we brought back the bookcase to the room. We put it on the filming side near the entrance. Sometimes you can see it a little in a video, and I think the vintage books here create beautiful backing. Next, I had to solve the problem with the storage of crafting materials. I have a lot of them, and a couple of years ago I sorted all my stocks into transparent plastic containers. It was really convenient and easy to look for the right material. While we were filming in the country, the containers were stored in my closet, but after we moved filming in the city, the containers moved as well, and since there was nowhere to store them, they were stacked under the table. To store these containers, we bought 3 simple metal racks. Of course, I dreamed about placing each container on its own shelf. I just hated those container piles. For some reason, it always turned out that the right container was at the very bottom of the pile. But we would need too many shelves to place all the containers on individual shelves. This would double the cost of the racks, so we decided we would place small stacks of containers onto each shelf. This is still much better than dealing with a pile of 6 containers or even more. I arranged all the materials by type, placing all fabrics together, all wooden blanks or natural materials together, and so on. I had to reattach the labels. Some of the categories have grown bigger over the years, something has gone, something has merged. I just reprinted the labels with the names I needed, editing my old file, and attached them to the containers. In addition to the containers, the racks are also used for storing DIY devices such as a polymer clay stove, my old grandmother's sewing machine, a UV lamp or a wax warmer, as well as lots of boxes for my restoration work. Oh my, they take up half a rack actually. We put a desktop to the window for a laptop, a sound device, a printer, a scanner, and all the other equipment I use for editing videos. Under the desktop goes another handmade cabinet. Gary assembled this one especially for storing his favorite toy, a 3D printer. All that is left is to set the microphones. We have bought new microphones for filming ASMR videos. And the lights. These new stands are so heavy, but they hold the lights perfectly. And I need to add little decor details, creating the atmosphere we wanted. The first thing I did even before I put the furniture was to hang a clock on a brick wall. To remember this video, it is made out of newspapers. I'll leave the link to the video in the description box in case you've missed it. I also decided to decorate the walls with vintage posters. I picked up some beautiful old tools patterns. You can often see such posters being sold, but in fact they are very easy to DIY. The Google Patterns service is your friend. You can find tons of nice antique patterns there. I'll link mine down below. I distressed the printouts the good old-fashioned way, using instant coffee. I diluted 4 to 5 tablespoons of instant coffee in 1/3 of a cup of water and applied the solution with patting movements onto the paper. The pages look nicer if you make them darker at the edges and lighter in the center, so I made a second layer of coffee along the edges. By the way, it's better to do this after the first layer has dried. The effect will be better then. I used plain frames from IKEA. I painted them black. I think such posters work great for a workshop or a home office, and you can pick sewing supplies posters, for example, if you sew, or woodworking items for a woodworking workshop, and so on. Next, I decided to add a vintage touch to the paints. The jars on the rack looked way too bright for a vintage workspace, so I spent several days and made new vintage labels for each type of paint I own. This took quite some time, as I also distressed them with coffee and even used black patina to edge the jar lids as well. But actually, I'm really happy how it turned out. It definitely was worth the efforts. I made vintage labels for all of my jars and bottles sitting on the wall rack as well. I'll link the templates down below in case you want to arrange the storage like this. I also found super cute wood pencil holders at a thrift shop for the wall rack. The were cast iron, both were right and of different colors, and to make them look like a single pair, I painted the boots a bright red, and after drying, I distressed them with brown wax. Well, look how cute they are! Isn't their shape amazing? And due to their weight, they are very stable. I started with this and the smallest brushes here. Now all my crafting tools and supplies are very well organized. Everything has its place, so it's easy to look for the item I need. And what is the most important for me? I have the nice looking vintage background I wanted for my videos. The workshop of my dream is now completed, and you can admire its look on my new channel, as well as this one, of course.
I hope you liked today's video. I also want to remind you that I have separate videos for each piece of furniture made for this workshop. I'll link them down below. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you in my next one. Bye!